This is Julie D. from NordoniaHills.News. The Cleveland Sports Show starts now.
Hello everyone, welcome to this week's edition of the Cleveland Sports Show. So much to talk about. I am your host, Darayus. Thank you so much for joining me on this fine Wednesday afternoon. We're recording live here from Nordonia High School. We're back with another episode. We have lots to talk about. John Beilein is out as the Cavs head coach. It is official. We have more talk about the Myles, Garrett, Mason, Rudolph feud. Still flares that are heating up in that. We'll get you some interviews on that. We'll recap this weekend's All-Star game from Chicago and give you updates on the Champions League. Let's do that right now. Champions League updates. Our first leg began yesterday. Atletico Madrid defeat Liverpool by a final score of 1-0. Saul Enriquez in the 4th minute with a very early goal, but it would prove to be the deciding goal as now Atletico Madrid aggregate, remember, 1-0 score. The two teams will face on March 11th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time for their second leg match. If Liverpool scores more than one goal in that game and don't concede any, then they will win the overall series on aggregate ruling. If Atletico Madrid either score more goals or don't concede any more at all, they will be heading to the second round, the quarterfinals. Our other matchup in the first leg of the Premier League yesterday was Borussia Dortmund taking on Paris Saint-Germain, and Paris Saint-Germain falling down 2-1 against Borussia Dortmund. The final score, as I mentioned, 2-1. The two goals from Erling Braut Haaland in the 69th and 77th minute were the deciders. Neymar was able to tie the game 6 minutes after Haaland scored his first goal of the game. However, in the 77th minute, able to execute one more time and score to give Dortmund a 2-1 aggregate lead over PSG. Borussia Dortmund led that game in terms of shots, 12 shots compared to just 10 for Paris. 3 shots on target for each team. Paris were able to win the possession battle at 53-47%, and the passing battle, and 616 passes completed for Paris, 536 for Borussia Dortmund. However, the goals is really what matters, and Paris Saint-Germain just were one short of tying this one up, and Borussia Dortmund have that 2-1 lead in the aggregate. Today, we have 2 more games in the Champions League. Atalanta will be facing off against Valencia, and Tottenham Hotspur are going up against RB Leipzig. Both of those games begin at 3 p.m. Eastern Time today on Wednesday, February 19th. We'll get you more updates next week. We have the more first leg 1 games going on. Leg 2 official of the first round of 16, begins on March 10th. And what a terrific NBA All-Star game we had this past weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Team LeBron defeat Team Giannis. Final score 157-155. I really liked, I don't know about you, I really enjoyed how this All-Star game format came about. The fact that the score would be reset after each quarter. Whichever team, LeBron or Giannis, won the quarter would provide $1,000 to either the Chicago Scholars group or the After School Matters program. So, terrific idea by the NBA. And then the fourth quarter, whoever scored, I believe it was 24 points first in honor of Kobe Bryant would win the game. Team LeBron defeat Team Giannis 157-155, and since Team LeBron won that fourth quarter, they won an additional $2,000 for their charity. If I'm not mistaken, it was the Chicago Scholars Yes, it was. The Chicago Scholars Charity Foundation that would receive that extra $2,000. Overall, phenomenal idea by the NBA. Common did a fantastic job with the pregame intros. This is one of the best pregame intros that we have seen in a while for the All-Star Game. This is, yes, a little bit better than Kevin Hart making jokes while he was introducing the players a few years ago. I think that was the one in Los Angeles. But either way, that's past us. This was a fantastic All-Star Game. Kawhi Leonard, 30 points in 20 minutes, 7 rebounds, 4 assists for Team LeBron. He would end up winning and being the first player to receive the Kobe Bryant MVP award, the NBA naming the All-Star Game MVP award after Kobe. The teams would also all wear the number 24 or the number 2, based on which team they played for, in honor of Kobe Bryant, who is obviously number 24, and then his daughter Gianna, who was number 2 on her basketball team out in California. So all in all, thumbs up, thumbs down. What are your thoughts on the All-Star Game from Chicago this past weekend for the NBA? Let me know. At Nordonia Sports is my Twitter handle. Make sure you contact me with your thoughts. What was the All-Star Game rating for you? I'll tell you, the Cavs rating right now is at rock bottom. This is not a pretty sight for Cavs basketball right now. From Chicago, we move to Cleveland, where the Cavs are just in a complete disarray right now. In between our 2 episodes this week, the Cavs only had 1 game. That was last week before the All-Star break. They obliterate the Hawks, 127-105, comfortable 22-point win. They outscore the Hawks in every quarter. The Cavs are now 14-40 on the season, able to get their 14th win over Atlanta last Wednesday. But again, these are the Atlanta Hawks. Let's be realistic. This is not a team that people have high hopes for anytime soon. And before we get into all this madness with John Beilein and everything else that's going on, let's just take a quick second to see what Collin Sexton had to say last Wednesday after that impressive 22-point victory over Atlanta.
6 assists tonight. Does that stand out to you more than anything?
Oh, yeah. I would say yes. And my teammates, they knock down shots for me. I'm going to find them in the right situations where they can just catch and shoot it. And I feel like I did that pretty good tonight.
And Collin Sexton did have a strong game against Atlanta last Wednesday. 23 points in 32 minutes to go along with 6 assists and 2 rebounds. But here is the story of the day. Today, officially, last night, it was official. John Beilein is no longer a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers. He has resigned from the team. J.B. Bickerstaff, an assistant coach for the Cavs, will now take his place for the remainder of the season. Gee, that sounds familiar. A Cavs coach either getting fired or parting ways with the team during the season, and then the assistant coach has to take the role. So that's happened 3 times in almost the last, 5 years for the Cleveland Cavaliers organization. The first time, it was actually a good move by the Cavs. They fired David Blatt, Tyronn Lue comes in, and then the rest is history, as you know. But these last 2 years, it's happened twice. So we've had 4 different coaches in the last 2 seasons. Let's rewind back to 2018, October. Tyronn Lue still the coach, all that stuff. 6 games in, they start out the season 0-6. It's just a complete meltdown first year without LeBron. Okay. Fire Tyronn Lue. Larry Drew comes in. The Cavs finish the season 19-63. Absolute, just pathetic season last year. Then Larry Drew is fired. John Beilein then comes in as the new head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, at the time, people really weren't sure of this. How would Beilein be able to adjust, moving from college to the NBA? Let's see what happens. The Cavs actually started 2-2 on the season. They were playing rather well, and then things just completely fell apart and dissipated from there. And now this happens today, February 19th, where John Beilein is stepping down and J.B. Bickerstaff steps in. Apparently, there are reports, that players did not get along with Beilein. They did not trust his system. They did not respect him. Obviously, there was that whole slugs versus thugs controversy that was going on. It was a mess. They actually preferred the players going to J.B. Bickerstaff for guidance or any kind of advice. So, is this better for the Cavs? I guess we'll see. Their schedule resumes Friday night. They'll be in Washington, D.C. to take on the Wizards. That'll be the first night of a back-to-back. The second night's in Miami against the Heat. They'll then return home for a 2-game homestand at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse against the Heat and Philadelphia 76ers. So, like I said, we'll see what J.B. Bickerstaff brings to this team, but it's more than that. Here's the problem. And it's 2 words. Andre Drummond. Now, I'm not saying Andre Drummond is the problem. I'm saying the Cavs have to be concerned with Andre Drummond. Here's why. So, yes, you have Tristan Thompson. Yes, you have Kevin Love. You just acquired another star player in Andre Drummond. Now, he wasn't in the All-Star game. We know that. Fine. But how long has Andre Drummond been the true leader of the Detroit Pistons? Let's be honest here. It's been that way for a while. So you get a veteran in Andre Drummond. You have Tristan Thompson. You've got a nice young core of Sexton and Garland in the backcourt. In fact, Ray Horner and I actually talked about this on Center Court. You can on 1590 WAKR. You can catch our radio segments every Friday live at 6:45 a.m. on 93.5 FM, or I post all of my episodes with Ray on that Twitter account, Nordonia Sports. Make sure you check it out. But nonetheless, Ray Horner and I were talking. You have Sexton and Garland as a backcourt. You have these bigs in Kevin Love, Tristan Thompson, and Andre Drummond. If the Cavs management was actually smart and kept Jordan Clarkson, that would also help. So you have a great bench scorer, but I guess 2 points a game from Dante Exum is just as good. Nonetheless, this is a core that you can build from. And Andre Drummond, you fans, I hope you realize this, does not have to remain a member of the Cavs. Due to the fact that he was traded there, he can sign somewhere else for all he cares next season. And if you're any logical NBA fan would think, why on earth would Andre Drummond want to stay in Cleveland if this is what's happening? Andre Drummond comes for 2 games, and Coach Beilein already wants to go. What message does that send? If you're a rebuilding team, wouldn't you think consistency, any way you could find consistency, is the best way to build? And the fact that 4 coaches in the last 2 seasons, does that really build consistency? Let's think about that. How is Andre Drummond going to be convinced to stay here in Cleveland? The main priority for the Cavs is to keep a smile on Andre Drummond's face. Andre Drummond landed in Cleveland for his first game with the Cavs with a big smile on his face. You better hope that he ends the season with a smile on his face. If you're anyone in office or in management for the Cavs, if you're another player for the Cavs, if you're on the coaching staff, Andre Drummond needs to have a smile on his face at the end of the season. And this does not help. The fact that now we're changing coaches 2 games after he's been there, and there's still no consistency in terms of what you're running offensively or how you're executing your defense. Who in their logical brain, if you have a chance to leave Cleveland, would want to stay there as of right now? Overall, it's consistency that matters with these Cavs, and right now, they're not getting it done. And best of luck to Coach Beilein and his future. We'll see what he does, if he'll retire or move on somewhere else. We'll see. Consistency matters. Consistency matters. I'll repeat that as many times. That's what's important. You saw the Philadelphia 76ers. They just kept drafting high, and now look where they're at. They're underachieving right now, given all the talent that they were able to acquire. You look at the Boston Celtics under Brad Stevens. That entire time, the Celtics weren't great in 2013, 2014, 2012. The Celtics were not a powerhouse team. That was when Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce were starting to age. The Heat, LeBron, Bosh, and Wade were starting to take over as the beasts of the East. So the Celtics in 2013, 2014 had a terrible season. They didn't even make the playoffs. And guess who was their head coach then? Brad Stevens. So Brad Stevens has essentially built the squad to where it is now. Brett Brown built that Sixers squad to where it is now, although his job might be on the line. So if you have 4 coaches in 2 seasons for the Cavs, where is that consistency factor? I want to end the Cavs segment this week with an idea from Kendrick Perkins. Now, Kendrick Perkins is a former member of the Cavs. Now he's doing a great job in reporting on ESPN The Jump, which is centrally focused on the NBA. Let's see what Kendrick had to say in terms of the Cavs' problems with John Beilein.
Well, I mean, from my sources, they brought in the coach to build culture. They have young guys. They have a 19-year-old. They have an 18-year-old in Colin Sexton and Garland. And he's built culture. Now, one thing I can say about Beilein is that everywhere he went, he's changed the program. One thing that he has to adjust is college is different than the pros. It really is like a players' league. So, as a coach, you have to kind of put your pride aside just a little bit and adjust to the players, because now you have players that are making $20 to $30 million a year. And anyways, I don't even know why this is so much of a story, because nobody expected the Cavs to do anything this year anyway. Right?
And that's true. No one really did expect the Cavs to do anything in terms of their actual standings. I mentioned earlier that they're 14-40. That is the worst record in the Eastern Conference. I can't believe I'm saying this, but yes, the New York Knicks actually have a better record than the Cavs for once. Knicks are 17-38. Cavs are 14-40. They're 2-8 in their last 10 games. 9-28 on the road. 7-22 at home. 7-18 on the road. They have more home losses than away losses, which is just baffling at this point. But we'll keep you updated with the Cavs, what J.B. Bickerstaff will be doing. Don't forget, Cavs-Wizards Friday night. The Cavs will then be in Miami against the Heat Saturday night. The road back-to-back to start the post-All-Star game, All-Star Week schedule. Let's move on from Cavs to Browns. Yes, Browns talk here in February. Apparently, remember the date November 14th, 2019, when Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph ensued in a brutal fight at First Energy Stadium. The Browns would eventually defeat the Pittsburgh Steelers 21-7, but there was a lot of discussion on what Myles Garrett needs to be suspended, how he should be suspended, how long he should be suspended after hitting Mason Rudolph with Rudolph's own helmet, taking it off him and hitting him with it. Thankfully, it was just part of the padding of the helmet that hit his head. But ESPN First Take got with Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. They talked with him via computer, satellite, whatever you want to call it, and they got his opinion. Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman got his opinion on the overall situation. Myles Garrett has accused Mason Rudolph of using a racial slur in that battle, in that fight that ensued on November 14th, and Mike Tomlin, being an African-American head coach in the NFL, had his say in that incident on First Take, claiming that it was not true. Let's take a listen to what Tomlin had to say.
The most recent one this past weekend, I took offense to it, to be quite honest with you. When it first transpired during the season, we don't have a lot of time to pause and fight battles of that nature. We said our piece. We were completely cooperative with all parties involved, the Cleveland Brown organization and the National Football League office, and then we had to move on. We had another game awaiting us, and we wanted to be singularly focused. But when these allegations returned this past weekend, I thought it was appropriate that Mason is properly defended. It was a thorough investigation done by us and the National Football League. I don't think that was represented during that piece. These accusations are serious, not only in terms of Mason Rudolph's character, but his professional pursuits. Nobody on that field, as a member of the Cleveland Browns or the Pittsburgh Steelers, corroborated what was said by Myles Garrett. That was founded by us and the National Football League, and at no point during that piece this weekend that was stated. Myself, personally, I was on the field immediately after that altercation and subsequently after the game. I got a lot of personal relationships within that organization over there in Cleveland. At no point did anyone within that organization come forward and say, Mike, heads up, we got a situation here, or something of that nature that you would expect that comes with those type of allegations. So I fully support Mason Rudolph. We as an organization fully support Mason Rudolph. And to be quite honest with you, we were hacked off with what we saw this weekend. Not specifically from Myles Garrett. He's been in the lane that he's in. But what was displayed by ESPN in that panel, the way that the situation was presented, I don't think was fair to Mason Rudolph, and that's why I'm here today.
So obviously Mike Tomlin, being coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, defended Mason Rudolph, but what did, let's look at the other side. What did Myles Garrett have to say about the Browns and why he is right in justifying that Mason Rudolph used a racial slur in the fight? Well, this past weekend, actually, Myles Garrett opened up about that fight with Mason Rudolph. OTL, a publishing company, set up an interview with Myles Garrett, and as we all know, he wasn't stated back into the NFL, and ESPN's Mina Kimes on Outside the Lines, OTL, which is part of ESPN, talked with Myles Garrett on that racial slur and the evidence that was not found. There was no evidence found claiming that Rudolph used a racial slur. And well, let's see what Garrett's opinion on that was.
Most quarterbacks wear mics in their helmets. He somehow lost his helmet and had to get another one without a mic. There were guys who were mic'd up near me, and near us during that time, who didn't hear anything. And from what I've heard, there have been audio during that game that could have heard something or could not have heard something, but they don't want to say. So something was said. I know something was said. Now, whether the NFL wants to acknowledge it, that's up to them. But I don't want to make it a racial thing, honestly. But it's over with for me, and I'm pretty sure it's over with for Mason. So we just want to move past that and keep on playing football.
So that is where the two parties stand at this point. Seems like Mason Rudolph is recovering from what was happening. It seems, and also definitely seems, Myles Garrett is in a much calmer state now, especially knowing the fact that he is back in the NFL. Of course, we'll keep you more updated on what's been going on with this, if anything does further come along the lines. But let's move from Browns football to our final topic of the day, Indians baseball. That's right, spring training begins this Saturday. It officially starts the preseason, if you will, for the Cleveland Indians. The Cincinnati Reds will be facing off against the Indians. The Indians will then take on the Royals, Rockies, and White Sox for their next 3 games in spring training. And guess what? They're all on consecutive days. So Saturday is when the first game is. It's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You've got Indians games pretty much every day. In fact, the Indians play twice on Saturday the 29th against the Oakland Athletics, 3:05 p.m. and 4:05 p.m. Again, just spring training games, making sure everyone's athletically ready to go and physically ready for that grueling MLB season. The official regular season begins on March 26th for the Indians at 1:10 p.m. The Detroit Tigers will be in town at Progressive Field for the Indians' first game of the regular season. And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our episode this week of the Cleveland Sports Show. Thank you so much for joining me. Fantastic to have all you guys listen in. We had a lot to cover this week. Thank you for hanging in there. I also, before I go, just want to give you a few updates on what's been going on in terms of social media. I am still on Twitter. You can find me at Nordonia Sports is my Twitter name, or you can type in my name, Darayus Sethna, spelled Darayus Sethna. On Twitter, I post all the episodes of the Cleveland Sports Show on there, as well as my Friday morning weekly interviews on WAKR with Ray Horner. Center Court, we talk Cavs basketball throughout the season. I post all those episodes on there as well. And if you're on the go, never to fear, because Spotify is here. That's right, the Cleveland Sports Show is officially on Spotify. The best way you can access it on Spotify is type in my name, once again, spelled Darayus Sethna, and that Cleveland Sports Show podcast should come up for you to listen to on the go. So you have all your Cleveland sports needs there for you. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me this week. We will see you next week for more Cleveland sports talk. Definitely we'll be talking about how JB Bickerstaff has been doing with the Cavs. That'll be a major topic and discussion point for next week. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, have a great week. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next Wednesday.